There we go. All right, so here we are once again with another Masters Universe Origins unboxing, and this is the 2000X He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. He-Man, most powerful man of the universe. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge a loss in my family recently. My cousin by marriage, Chuck Negron, who you might remember is musical career. He was in Three Dog Night and recorded a bunch of songs with them, did a bunch of stuff on his own too. He passed away last night. He'd been battling a lot of health issues, and it's been a struggle for him. So he's at peace now. So I'm at least glad of that. I can take solace in that he's not suffering anymore. But he was a good guy. He married my cousin a few years back. They were going to have this whole big wedding that they planned out, and they were going to come. She was going to, he was going to come with her back to Georgia, and they were going to get married in March of 2020. So obviously that didn't work out so well. They wound up having to stay at home and get married over the internet, which was nice. We all still got to see it and everything. But yeah, the big wedding plans were dashed, unfortunately. And they'd been together for a few years before that. A lot of good, happy years. But nothing lasts forever. And obviously, my cousin Amy, she's kind of inconsolable right now. She's just dealing with a lot. And if she's watching this, I just want to let you know, Amy, I love you. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, let me know. I know you watch this show sometimes, so, and she's got her own YouTube thing going on, but she's been really busy lately with a lot of other things, so I don't think she's done as much on YouTube lately. But Amy Rock and Pop Shop, if you want to check it out, see what she's done. So, but yeah, pretty sad thing that happened. But I guess that's just life. That's how it's gonna be. Blue Shadow the Hedgehog is here and says, "Hello, Alan. Morning." Well, hello to you too. So I saw your comment earlier. I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge it, but I was kind of in the middle of unloading there. But yeah. How am I doing today? I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. But yeah, I'm ready to open up this action figure. And I kind of don't want to take too long with this episode because I got to go to work in a little bit. So I'm trying to bang this out real quick before I got to go to work. I got to go in early today. But we got the 2000X Mike Young animated series version of He-Man. Here's the artwork on the back. You see the Sorceress. Now, there's a bunch of these figures out already. And you can see in the cross-sell art, we got Triclops, we got Stratos, and we got He-Man himself. But there's been a bunch of other characters like Beast Man, Ram Man, Man-at-Arms, good assortment of figures. The usual suspects as far as a He-Man line goes. But I got to say, I really want a Sorceress in this line. And I don't think we got a Sorceress from Filmation. If we did, I didn't know about her. But she was a huge peg warmer in the regular Origins line. Like, you can still get the regular Origins Sorceress for like under $5 on Big Bad Toy Store right now. She did not sell well. That whole wave was like a peg warmer wave. You can get, I think, all of those for like $5 very easily. But but yeah, so I think that's probably why they never did a Filmation Sorceress, unfortunately, and why we might not get a 2000X Sorceress. But I would really love to get a 2000X Sorceress because, as you can see, she has a very distinct design that's very different from the standard version of the Sorceress. Like with the Filmation Sorceress, I kind of feel like at least this one is close enough. This is based on what she looked like on the Filmation cartoon. It's pretty much what she looked like on the Filmation cartoon. The only difference is her headdress is like really different. And even then, if I wanted to, I could 3D print. There's several classic style sorceress heads. I could 3D print one and put it on here and customize it easily. And like I said, she's not an expensive figure to buy. So not having a Filmation sorceress, while that sucks, it's not the biggest tragedy in the world. But I would say it would suck pretty hard not to get a 2000X sorceress, especially because we never got 2000X sorceress in classics either. The closest we got was the Queen Grayskull figure, Vina. We got a figure of her, but even her design is like, while it's closer to the 2000X sorceress design, it's not the same. And likewise, Battle Cat, we got we don't have a 2000X Battle Cat. And honestly, I prefer the original Battle Cat design. Anyway, I never really was too crazy about this helmet design, but it would still be nice to have at some point. Maybe these would be things that would be better served as being Mattel Creation website exclusives. And then we have Orko. I always really liked that Orko design. He was really cool looking on that show. Bobby Wald is here and says, for being the most powerful man alive, he seems to be easily trapped in a blister card that a 5-year-old can rip open easily enough. Well, good news for you, Bobby. We're about to do that very thing. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about this packaging, since we haven't opened up one of these before. We got this red sky in the background. We got Castle Grayskull on there. That is definitely the 2000X version of Castle Grayskull. It doesn't have a helmet. You can see the cross, the upside down cross in the window there. What that was supposed to be on the original toy was not an upside down cross, but a silhouette of the power sword. So like you could light it up almost like a bat signal, I think. I think it was supposed to represent like when he said, I have the power. I didn't actually have that Castle Grayskull playset. I still had my original Castle Grayskull playset. Thank you very much. And I felt like it was much better than this new one they were putting out. That like Castle Grayskull doesn't even have a helmet on it, for crying out loud. And you can see the 2000X style logo on there. I was never really a huge fan of the 2000X style logo either. I much preferred the original, as we can see on the back of this comic book, the original Masters Universe logo. I like this one better than the movie logo too, by the way, while we're at it, the more modern style, the one we saw on Revelation and Revolution and the new movie. I like this one way better, but I'm an old man and I'm set in my ways. So like chalk it up to that if you want to. But I feel like that one is much more visually interesting than either of the other newer Masters of the Universe logos. That's just me. But this one always just looked kind of plain to me. I was never that crazy about it. I always wish they had used the original logo. I really liked the 2000X line overall, though. I thought the figures were really cool. I did wish they had have done some more updated versions of the old vehicles. Instead, they decided to just do completely original vehicle designs, and I don't think I liked any of those anywhere near as well as I liked the original vehicles, like the Battle Ram and the Wind Raider and the Talon Fighter and Roton. I love Roton. Spydor. Oh man, I'm a little disappointed we haven't gotten a classics version of Spydor. Maybe that's another thing they can do is Mattel Creations. I know the vehicles a lot of times got clearanced out in that line, but Spydor would have been rad. Sean Franklin is here and he says hi. Man, we got a lot of people stopping by today with Sean Franklin, Bobby Wald, Blue Shadow the Hedgehog. We are rocking. And I do have over here so we can compare the standard Origins 2000X He-Man, and we can talk about the differences between the two figures and the things that they have in common. And I have the Filmation He-Man because basically I want to do a height comparison. This guy looks really tall, so I really want to check on the height. Does not appear to be a comic book with this guy, so I guess these don't come with comic books. But I'm going to say that's going to be a good thing because, like I said, I was going to try to keep this episode fairly short. And I already ranted on about stuff going on in my personal life, and I already ranted on about the show and the 2000X He-Man show and all this other stuff. By the way, last I checked, 2000X Masters Universe was actually on Amazon, so you can watch it on Amazon if you want to watch it. Last I checked, it was anyway. That was the last place I watched it. So here is the Sword of Power, and of course it is based very much on the design as it appeared on the cartoon series. The cartoon series one being very much based on the one that came with the toy. But I am noticing some differences between how this power sword is depicted and how it is on the show. For example, you might remember on the show that when he transforms, like Adam's sword is basically like a more compact version of this. So the sword kind of, all these blades pop open, and that when he says the magic words to transform into He-Man, when he's, I have the power, then all these blades kind of pop out, and then it becomes He-Man's sword, which I thought it was kind of clever, because I always wondered why don't everybody talks about how Adam and He-Man look so much alike, that why don't people know that Adam is He-Man? And I was the kid who always thought, why don't people notice that Adam has a sword that looks exactly like He-Man's sword? Like, that's a pretty distinctive looking sword. That's a pretty famous sword. And I suppose Adam could be like, well, I just thought He-Man's sword looked really cool, so I had the Royal Blacksmith make me a replica. Sean Franklin asks, have you seen the new Michael Jackson trailer? I have not, but I definitely should check it out, shouldn't I? Because I am pretty excited about that Michael Jackson movie. I'm an 80s kid, and in the 80s, there wasn't much. I think Michael Jackson was probably the biggest thing in the world during the 80s. And in fact, I think the only thing that might have been bigger for 80s kids during the 80s might have been He-Man. Or maybe Mr. T. We all loved Mr. T. We all loved He-Man. We all loved Michael Jackson. Those were things that were huge back in that time period in the early 80s. But yeah, I'll definitely try to check it out, because I am pretty excited about that movie, where like his nephew is playing him, and hopefully some of that talent rubbed off on the nephew. You know what I mean? So anyway, but the blades are like a different configuration on this, because the toy of 2000X had this gimmick where you could kind of twist the handguard of it, I guess you'd call it, and it would kind of open up. And the design on the cartoon mimicked that, and it actually sculpted in where like the lines were asymmetrical on either side of the sword, so you can see how it would open up. But this one seems to be more symmetrical. It's designed the same on either side, and it is a little more detailed than how they drew it on the cartoon, but still a little more simplified versus the previous Origins version of the 2000X sword, where you can see that's got a lot more detail to it. That's a little more accurate to the toy as far as that goes. But I think this one's a little more accurate to the toy as far as proportions go. You can see how much longer it is than the previous one. This is a bigger sword. So I don't know if Adam's compensating for something in this cartoon. I don't know what the deal is with that. I'm not here to judge. Or if my snip's over here, because I was doing something with my 3D printer earlier. I'm working on an Origins style figure of Warduke. By the way, I kind of feel like I should acknowledge this. It looks like sad news for this channel. There's a lot of sad news on this episode, but this is kind of more just kind of not personally sad, but just kind of sad as far as like He-Man goes. It looks like the Origins line might finally be coming to an end. I've seen like what would be like the Origins equivalent in the new movie figures, the kids line, which I've seen called First Ones, which seems like that's an acknowledgement of the Origins line. I saw it on a Spanish-speaking Facebook page, and it translated as First Ones. Maybe something's lost in translation. It's still called Origins. I don't know, but they definitely are like about the same size as Origins figures, but they don't have the modular thing going on. So technically, I guess Origins is on the way out, unfortunately. And for this channel specifically, the channel that Origins built, the very first action figure unboxing I did on this channel was that very first Origins He-Man figure. That does sadden me greatly. So anyway, here's what the back of his armor looks like, and you can see it's got a strap on there to hold the sword. That's very similar to the design on the cartoon, and how the actual 2000X figure was designed. There, fits in there nicely. Mauro Bastiani is here, and he says, I really liked the 2000X line. I agree. I thought it was a great line of figures. Oddly enough, the figure that I thought was weakest of the ones I had was He-Man himself. I kind of felt like the He-Man figure, while the design was cool, and I thought that the paint master that they made for it looked great, I kind of feel like when they actually produced it, the figure wound up being a little smallish. And I think that if they'd have made it in a larger scale, it would have looked better. I think the problem was when I was looking at it, comparing it to an 80s Masters of the Universe figure. And while he was a fairly muscular fellow, like proportionally and in terms of size, he was not as big as the 80s He-Man. So I kind of felt like he was a little on the small side. That and his face, for whatever reason, had this kind of weird Peter Pan kind of look to it. I don't know how to describe it other than that. But I didn't really like the He-Man figure that much. I thought the He-Man figure could have been better. But I didn't hate it either. I thought it was okay. You know, it just wasn't as great as the 80s He-Man. And 80s He-Man is probably going to be like my favorite aesthetic look for the character anyway. I do really like how Origins captured the 80s style of He-Man. I thought they did a great job with that. Hell, even the 2000X Origins version, I kind of felt like that fixed all the problems that I had with the original 2000X figure. He's got that classic He-Man face, and he's got the classic He-Man build, and to me, this guy looks like He-Man. He's wearing a different outfit than what he wore in the 80s, slightly, but this is He-Man right here. And the only complaint I have about this guy, and I wish they'd have figured out how to do it back then, is if they could have given him one of these kind of rubber overlay type loincloths, then he could have had a more accurate loincloth, and he could have had the pouch in the front instead of the back. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm not ready to compare with this. So he only has one accessory, and that's the Sword of Power. And I'm pretty sure that I don't remember, at least. I could be mistaken. Somebody could correct me in the comments if I am mistaken. I don't remember He-Man ever using the shield or the axe on the 2000X animated series. And that makes sense, because I don't believe he ever used the shield or the axe on the 1980s animated series either. So on both versions, I think, if it's not his only weapon, and I think it might be his only weapon, it certainly his main weapon is the old Sword of Power here. And where I was going to compare some, yeah. So if you want to give this version of He-Man an axe and a shield, they do come with this version of He-Man, and he's not too expensive. He's not too hard to pick up. Get yourself an extra one. You can use the figure for custom parts if you want, and then you can give this guy an axe and a shield. But let's see how well he can hold those accessories. I'm guessing pretty well, because like this seems like a standard Origins style hand over here. So there he is with the axe. Excuse me. I'm still getting over that cough. I've been really, really congested lately because I've been working outside at night a lot lately, and I get really congested. That's what I gotta go do again tonight. But so let's go ahead and have a look at him with the shield. And actually, I think the shield fits on this guy a little better than it fits on the standard Origins arm, because actually his forearm is slightly leaner. He's got a slightly less bulky forearm. I'm just going to wind up comparing them, aren't they? I do think that in general, if we compare, I kind of feel like the arms are about the same size. They're about on a par with each other. But I would say that like your standard Origins He-Man, he's a little more pumped up, if that makes any sense. Like, I kind of feel like this arm and this arm would be about the same size, but this is like when he's flexing, and this is when he's kind of more relaxed. So, and like I said, that original 2000X figure, he was a little more lanky in terms of his proportions than the original 80s He-Man figure. So this is supposed to be more like the original 80s He-Man figure, and this is supposed to be more like the 2000X figure. But still, I feel like his proportions are still more muscular and more buff than than that original 2000X figure. I feel like this physique works a lot better for me, and his face. It's, to me, this isn't like a particularly He-Man-ish face. It doesn't really even look particularly too much like how it did on the cartoon, as I can recall. I kind of feel like his face should be a little more squarish. It's a little long and gaunt. He looks a little like Daniel Day-Lewis, honestly. And I noticed that his armor... Damn it, I thought I turned that alarm off. Anyway, I noticed that his armor is attached in the back with these two pegs rather than the kind of square peg that we have on the back of this guy. He's got two pegs on either side, roundish pegs, which I gotta say, cartoon accuracy be damned. I like the roundish pegs better because it seems like to me that's going to be a lot easier to close his vest back up. I like rounded pegs better. They're more functional. There's a reason we use rounded pegs on action figures, like as long as there have been action figures. I'm pretty sure that like you could probably find accessories from the first wave of G.I. Joe in 1964 that have rounded pegs on them. So anyway, I wanted to do a height comparison because this dude looks tall AF. He is super tall. So let's compare him to a regular Origins figure, and that's another reason I got 2000X over here. And you can see he's almost a half an inch taller than this guy. So let's compare him. Also, another figure that's slightly taller than the Origins line, the standard Origins line, I mean, is the previous cartoon collection, the Filmation version of He-Man. And you can see that even he is a little bit shorter, just a very little bit. I'd say more like maybe a quarter of an inch shorter than the 2000X guy. But the Filmation He-Man definitely has it on the 2000X He-Man as far as bulk. He all of these He-Mans, like this one's definitely the tallest, but I would say the regular Origins body is definitely the most muscular, and then the Filmation cartoon collection body fits slightly in between those. So but this is a good looking He-Man, even if he's not as buff as the standard Origins figure. I kind of feel like he's still buff enough that he's worthy of the title of He-Man. This works pretty well. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take him apart in the middle. And we're going to remove this loincloth. And underneath, he's got some shorts that at first glance it might look like that's the regular Origins shorts, but it's not. These are different. And you can see that, like, rather than having the studs all the way, we'll see on Ninjor here, since I got him handy. He's got studs all the way around his belt. He's just got studs in the front, like 3 little studs on there, and a different fur texture entirely. You can see, actually, his fur texture is like slightly more subdued, yet slightly more detailed. Let's compare with the cartoon, the Filmation version, and it looks like the fur pattern is more similar to what we see on the Filmation figure, but he's got those 3 little dots. I'm not sure what those 3 little dots come from. I'm guessing that this is a cartoon collection that either I forgot about or maybe I don't have it at all. But it's probably reused from a cartoon collection figure. And if it's not 100% reused from a cartoon collection figure, it's a retool of this waist piece with the plain belt on it. You know, going through the Filmation cartoon collection figures, like, I started to realize that a lot of characters on that show had studs on their belts. Like Webstor had 1 stud on his belt, and You know, some of the other characters would have some studs on their belt. And it made me wonder even more why they left all the studs off of He-Man's belt entirely. You would think they would have at least left the one in the middle to be like his belt buckle, to look like a belt buckle. But whatever. And I do feel like that I was struggling with it a little earlier. You might have seen this loincloth piece. I do feel like it was sitting a little high on He-Man's abdomen. So I'm going to see if I can press it down. I was trying to press it down while it was still on the figure, but I was having a hard time with it. Now that I got it off the figure, I think it's a little easier. So let's go ahead and put them back together. And yeah, I think that looks a lot better than what it looked like previously. Let me know if you agree in the comments. But, you know, the design of him on the 2000X show was a little more detailed than what we saw in Filmation. And of course, the 2000X costume design is way more detailed than the original toy design, so that makes sense. The Four Horsemen designed the 2000X line, and they went all out on it with the detail and the paint applications. This was a great line of figures, and I know I was critical of their version of He-Man, but that's just me being critical about an interpretation of like one of my favorite superheroes of all time, one of my favorite characters of all time. And, you know, of course I was going to be picky. I was comparing it to one of the greatest action figures of all time, the original He-Man action figure. And at the time, the only He-Man action figures we had was that vintage line and the New Adventures line, which also I was very disappointed in their version of He-Man. And so we had, you know, He-Man, Battle Armor He-Man, Thunder Punch He-Man, and Flying Fist He-Man in the original line. And then we had this 2000X line. We're going to skip New Adventures. And I just felt like he just wasn't quite as visually impressive as that original one, just because he didn't have that kind of bulk. You know, when Roger Sweet came up with the concept of the He-Man line of action figures, which inarguably he did, his idea was make a big freaking muscular action figure. And that's kind of what He-Man ought to be. And I kind of feel like this one did what the original 2000X figure could not, which is do an entirely new sculpt of He-Man, but still keep that kind of bulk to it. Now, the Four Horsemen, as far as I'm concerned, did eventually do their perfect He-Man action figure. And that, of course, came in the Classics line. I think if the 2000X version had a little more bulk to him, I would have liked him better. But that's just me. That's just my personal opinion. But I kind of feel like this one has just the right amount of bulk. This one looks like He-Man to me. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about his articulation. He-Man can't look up that far. His hair kind of snags in the back there. And I would say, well, that's because he's got long hair. But honestly, like a lot of these He-Man figures have long hair, and they can still look up fairly well. Huh? Yeah, he can look up fairly well. Let's look at our 2000X from the original Classics line. He can look up fairly well. And you want him to be able to look up when he holds aloft his magic sword and says, "By the power of Grayskull." And by the way, they do have that hold aloft joint on there, so that is great. You know I love that. Every He-Man figure ought to have this joint. I'm kind of disappointed that whenever I get a He-Man that doesn't have this joint. By the way, my movie figure, that's one thing that I forgot. I forgot myself to add that on there. So I guess I'm going to have to get an extra Thundercats He-Man or something so I can add that joint to him. But yeah, of course the head rotates all the way around. You can tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side. The arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders. He's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow, which bends in about that far. And I noticed there's a little splotch, just a little spotch of gunmetal paint on his forearm. So I'm going to have to clean that off later. His wristbands are gunmetal, which I feel like is very appropriate to the look on the cartoon where it was kind of gray. You can see on the previous Origins version, they just kind of gave him silver. And then even give him new wristbands. He just kind of has the regular He-Man wristbands in silver. But this guy, they did give him the distinct 2000X wristbands, one on each side. He-Man was not symmetrical in terms of his wristbands on the show, just like the original figure and the 2000X figure. So good on Mike Young Productions for that. Also, you can see they painted in the little squares on He-Man straps red, which they did not do on the 2000X version. This one, the breastplate is more based on the toy, so it's got a little more detail to it. This one is more based on the cartoon, so you can see it's slightly more simplified. Also, the shape of the H emblem, the asterisk, is just ever so slightly different because on the cartoon, they decided to thicken up the H portion of it a little bit more. And in fact, I don't think they quite thickened it up enough for this one, in my personal opinion. But it's still a little more prominent than it is on the regular version of He-Man, isn't it? Also on his belt buckle. And you can see that the belt also has that gunmetal color. He's got the little pouch, little fanny pack in the front of his furry kilt. I'm guessing that was inspired by Scottish kilts. So I'm going to say kilt as to why he has that little pouch on the front there. Plus, like, it gives him a place to carry little doodads around when he needs them, like a grappling hook or whatever. So, and then you see his furry boots. The original 2000X had solid brown boots like this guy, but he's got the lighter, almost tan shade at the top, the fringe at the top of his boots, which I believe that's accurate to the cartoon as well. Luke Skywalker is here and says, "Love catching these live. I appreciate your action figure story time. Great details." Well, I appreciate you stopping by, Luke. So it's always good to see any of you guys popping up in the live stream, and it's always great to see any of you guys. If you aren't able to make a live stream, leave a comment in the comments section, because I like reading the comments later on. So I always appreciate that. I do wish maybe they'd added a little more fur detail to the shorts, and they like there is I think probably like an adequate amount for an animated figure. They probably didn't even need to put as much as they did. I'm glad that they did, because sometimes the animated fur can lack detail and look kind of blobby, and I never like that. I always like it to look nice and sharp, and this does look nice and sharp. But they probably could have added more to it, as far as I'm concerned. In fact, if they had added more to it, I definitely would do this. But let's see what it looks like. I want to see what it looks like if we put it on the regular 2000X Origins figure. Because like I said, my one problem with that one was I kind of felt like he needed a longer loincloth. Yeah, baby. That looks cool. I like that. So I'm just going to have to get me an extra one of these He-Man figures. Just so I can use that loincloth. And hey, I can take that held aloft wrist and put it on my movie He-Man figure, couldn't I? Yeah, I could do that. So anyway, that was definitely worth checking out. And I'm sure somebody watching this might have been curious as to how that waist piece might fit on there. But let's go ahead and put him back together again. And I'm still not done talking about the articulation. So as I mentioned, this one does have a vertical hinge on the wrist, so you can do him holding the sword aloft or blasting Cringer with the power sword to transform him into Battle Cat. That's another advantage to having that held aloft wrist, as I like to call it. Imagine you're Cringer getting turned into Battle Cat right now. Yeah. That's the view when you're Cringer and you're getting turned into Battle Cat. Oh man. So He-Man can kick up about that far, which is a pretty great range of motion as far as Origins figures go. Not great like as far as action figures in general, just kind of par for the course, I think. Average. But for an Origins figure, this is fantastic. He-Man can do the splits no problem. Jean-Claude He-Man over here, his leg can swing back about that far. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, bends a little more than 90 degrees, just slightly more than 90 degrees, and then that rotates all the way around. The boot cut rotates all the way around, and then the foot points down about that far. Great range of motion as far as pointing down at the foot, and points up about that far. Not quite as great a range of motion, but still not bad. So this is a great figure. They did a really great job with this. I think that I don't know if I'm gonna say it's the best 2000X version of He-Man that Mattel has made, but it's definitely a really good one. And if you don't already have the original classics version, I'm sorry, the original Origins version of 2000X He-Man, you definitely should pick this guy up because he'd be a great way to represent that version of the character in your collection. And I do think that there are definitely some ways where this figure is superior to this figure, and there's some ways where this figure is superior to this figure. They're both great figures, though, and I think they both do the job that they're supposed to do fairly well. I kind of feel like the perfect 2000X He-Man is somewhere in between these two, though. I kind of feel like while both of them do what they're supposed to do perfectly, I kind of feel like the best one would be somewhere in between these two guys. That's just me. That's just my opinion. And it's not supposed to be any kind of harsh criticism of either one of these figures either. I think they're both great figures. And, I'm glad that I finally picked this guy up and added him to my collection. And he definitely won't be the last of these 2000X cartoon collection figures. I definitely want to get more of these. Like I said, I know there's a lot of them out right now. That Beastman figure is definitely a beast. He's impressive looking. And of course, Man-at-Arms. I always love the design of Man-at-Arms on 2000X, so I definitely want to pick that up. They got Stratos, they got Triclops. I need to get Triclops. Triclops is cool. I'm trying to remember what the other ones they had. Oh, Prince Adam. Prince Adam. I actually had Prince Adam pre-ordered from Big Bad Toy Store right now, so whenever he shows up, I'll have that in my pile of loot. I always liked the design of Prince Adam on in the 2000X line because that was the first time they made an effort to really make Adam look different from He-Man and really make him look like a teenager. And of course, various versions have done that since, like Revelation did that, but 2000X was the one to do it first. From what I understand, they were going to do that on Filmation originally, but they wound up not doing it because they wanted to save money. It's Filmation. They're going to do whatever they can to save money. Anyway, that's it for our 2000X He-Man. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes them when I say like and subscribe. So I like to say like and subscribe. I got to finish this up real quick because I got to get to work. It's time for me to go to work. It's past time for me to be getting ready to go to work. So I need to do that. And I've got to drive through all this traffic since now I have to work at rush hour on a Tuesday. Ugh, I hate it. But it's part of the thing I like about working nights is I don't have to deal with rush hour traffic. But when I got to go in early, when I got to be at a place at 6 o'clock, and I got to start getting ready to leave the house at 4, such a chore. But and I want to take the thumbnail for this guy before I leave. So I want to make sure I finish that. But yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I like it when you leave comments. Let me know what you think about this figure. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Bye.